And I think we do have his description. Can we take that? Let's take his description. Okay.
Well, fair enough. You were moving on to religion.
Yes.
And we've got 15 minutes now. And I suppose, have you given much thought to cults, I suppose, how cults might differ to religion and how a cult leader comes into being?
Cult leaders are invariably narcissists. They have an absolute belief that they are set apart from other people, often exude huge amounts of charisma, which they utilize then to brainwash people, to manipulate them to follow a particular ideal, to cause them to be cut off from friends and family so they can be more easily controlled, that they are specifically seduced. They're sort of fishing for volunteers, fishing for members of the cult. The way that the narcissist at the top of the tree is a true believer. They absolutely believe that in 6 years' time the Earth's going to explode in a ball of fire and there's going to be this sudden ascension to planet Zog. They actually believe that. And then, as a combination of their manipulative wiles, they then imbue that view into other people. And they may find other true believers, which is what the internet facilitates more than anything these days. It allows the village idiots to connect up with one another, whereas once before they were isolated. But it also means that other people, people who are susceptible to this, can be drawn in who aren't narcissists. And they end up being brainwashed. But at the top of a cult, you'll find a narcissist, because they have no concern for the way that the people are treated. Everybody is utilized as an appliance towards their ends of controlling them, for propagating their beliefs and what the cult stands for. Often people are abused in these cults. They have to go through initiations. They're often sexually abused. Often the cult leader, has this harem that's there. People are told to donate huge amounts of money, etc. And so very much the case, you will find that I think it would be highly unusual if you were to find a cult that wasn't led by a narcissist.
I've got a bit about the place that I bought before I bought the mothership.
Yeah.
Because it's about a place that was owned by a cult. So I've been watching the documentary on the cult. It's called Holy Hell. It's so fucking crazy. I've been watching it. I've watched it 3 or 4 times to try to find the angles for the bit.
Yeah.
Because the guy who ran it was a gay porn star who was also a hypnotist.
It's such a powerful combination.
All he wore was Speedos and eyeliner. And this dude ran this cult for 20 fucking years. And they kicked him out and sent him to Hawaii, and now he's running in Hawaii. At the end of the documentary, the guy goes to visit the guy in Hawaii. Now he's old and fucked up looking. He's had a bunch of plastic surgery, like fake cheeks, and his lips are done and everything. He looks like a monster. And he's still got these people following around and opening doors for him, and he sits down and he talks like a guru. Complete con artist.
Did they show you his porns?
Oh yeah.
How was it?
Oh yeah, they just block out where the dick is going in the ass. He's pounding this guy from behind, and then he's doing like a push-up. He's doing like a plank, and this guy is underneath him, and he's holding on to the guy's holding on to his hips, and he's just mouth fucking this guy.
Nice.
While his legs are completely suspended in the air.
And they tend to be led by men. I was just interviewing an ex-Hasidic Jewish woman yesterday, and somebody in the comments made that point. The cults inevitably turn into boys' clubs by the end, and as you pointed out, the sexual abuse seems to be. I mean, I'm not speaking anecdotally here, but it seems at least more than half of them.
Yeah, I mean, often what will happen is that a man will establish a cult, and then as part of that, will utilize lieutenants, and they're often female. So Keith Raniere, he drew it to women. Yeah. And because then women are seen, in broad brush terms, as more empathic, maternal, softer, kinder. So if you were walking down a road in the dead of night, if you saw a man coming along, you might be a little bit, some people would be a little bit apprehensive. What might happen if you saw a woman? They wouldn't be. There is that sort of stereotyping that goes on. So a narcissist will utilize female lieutenants because it's easier to draw people in with that individual. So, yeah, that's right. And those individuals become brainwashed, and they're susceptible to the wiles of the narcissist. They want to curry favor with the narcissist. They want to be the chosen one for the narcissist. The narcissist provides things that individual is deficient in. Often they've got low self-esteem, their self-worth is low. The narcissist presents as this ultra-confident, ultra-charismatic individual. So they, in a sense, they have their own needs met from the way the narcissist is behaving. And it's interesting. It's not something I'd actually considered as to why is it that cults are led more by men than they are by women. Because, of course, when it comes to the divvying up of narcissists, it's roughly 50-50 across the sexes. So I think possibly one part behind it is that simply the more outgoing aspects, not to say that there aren't outgoing women, but female narcissists tend to be harder to spot. They tend to operate with more covert behaviors. They tend to adopt this appearance of caring. Harry's wife being an example of that. Whereas the sort of more sort of alpha male character, you'll find more of those, leaving aside the male bit, but more alpha individual. You will see more of that behavior in men. And I suppose that perhaps lends itself to that climbing to the top of the tree and creating an organization in that way.
Yeah, I think that reminds me of something I've spoken about before, but Will Storr, the writer, popularized this idea of the status game and the three main types of status that evolutionarily we would have gone for, which would be dominance, success, and virtue. And some people can just be successful and they don't need to do any dominance or virtue signaling to sort of get to the top of their tribe. But I think typically, if you're out of ideas and you're like, well, how am I going to be this big, strong character? Stereotypically, the man would go for dominance, yes, and women have often gone for virtue, but it can be the other way around as well.
I think as a proposition that holds up.
Yeah. Well, they talk about toxic masculinity being this kind of dominance, and a lot of women can express toxic masculinity just being sort of big and loud and dominant and pushy and shut. I've definitely met a lot of women like that. I've met more men like that.
Yes.
But there are also a lot of men who have the toxic femininity, like sort of the sneakiness and the virtue signaling and that kind of thing. I hope that doesn't offend men or women, because it's a generalization, of course, but it's just something I've heard.
Yes, and I think you find as well with female narcissists, they will invariably use, as you've just pointed out there, there'll be those that will use virtue. I'm kind, I actually care. And, you've had this problem, I'm passionate about it. And then you'll also have, of course, both sexes will use sex a lot, but it's often seen as, the idea of feminine wiles to draw somebody in, and the fairer sex. And of course, part of it is conditioning, that roles have been attributed through history, that basically comes down to this factor: women carry children, men don't. It's nothing to do with physical strength, because although as a whole men are deemed to be physically stronger, you can easily find plenty of women who are very physically strong. Go to the Olympics, for example. In medieval times, who was it who was working the fields just as much as the men? Women were. They did back-breaking work, etc. They were carrying, going to get the water from the well, carrying those flagons of water and so forth. And so women are just as strong as men in that respect. What took them out of the game was the fact that for a period of time they had to have a child. And that meant that they were dependent, largely. You'll find isolated examples, of course, but you'll find instances where they obviously have to have somebody to look after them during that period of time, provide an income, provide food, because they can't. Because they either, immediately after childbirth, which is very dangerous for women, they're not able to physically be up and about, or they basically have to stay and deal with this crotch problem 24 hours a day. So consequently, the fact that they have to have a child takes them out of the dominance game, and so it's left to men. So that's why society became patriarchal. Now, if for some quirk in an alternate universe, women got together and said, well, actually, those of us who aren't bearing children will look after the women that are bearing children, it would have been an interesting outcome. But that didn't happen.
Of themselves, they become like the narcissist. So there's a transference of spirits going on. So the narcissist becomes lively and more like them, and the person gets dead inside because they're connected to a dead being. They're connected to a soulless being. This is way more than just a mental disorder. This is spiritual warfare of epic proportions. So
that sounds like a very self-centered ass person. Have you ran into anyone like that before?
yes. So that's how I came to learn about all of this, Floyd. That's how I came to know about narcissist abuse, was from personal experience. It wasn't something that I just read in a book. I experienced this. I was married to a sociopath.
Oh, wow, interesting. How long were you in this abuse?
So I was married to the sociopath for 2 years. 2 years too long.
2 years too long.
2 years too long. So it felt in what I call narc years. If you're married to a narcissist or with a narcissist, 2 years can seem like 20 years. Go to therapy with them, but the Most High can do anything but fail, right? So that's one thing. But what people like to do is say, well, he can change anybody, but God is in the business. His children are people that want to be changed.
Yes. Those that seek him. Absolutely.
That seek him.